Speaker session of today's Cool Product Expo. Today's theme has been Product Design for Tomorrow, and I'm very happy to introduce Moe Tanabian to close off today's event. Moe has a lot of experiences in engineering and products, having come from an engineering background, done his MBA, started his own startup, everything that I ever wanted to do. And what's even more is he is currently the head of Samsung SmartThings IoT Innovation Lab, which is really amazing. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Moe Tanabian.
Can you guys hear me? You're okay? If you're okay, I don't need to use the microphone. I'm pretty generally loud. So. Okay, great. Well, good evening, everyone. Glad to be here, and good to have the opportunity to share with you some of the stuff that we're doing and how we're doing them. As Jammie mentioned, I lead an R&D lab for Samsung Electronics in the Bay Area, and our focus is to build smart connected products. These are the things that will redefine our company's future in the next 5 to 10 years. We kind of had a good ramp up around mobile. If you guys know, we have the Galaxy line in the market. And our company is kind of little by little transitioning its direction strategically to focus on connected spaces and connected devices in the consumer space. So it's great to be at the center of that for the company, and we're basically, it's a playground for us to experiment with what may become the defining direction of our industry in general, not just our company. What I'm going to talk about today for about 10-15 minutes is how we try to understand what will work. Or better said, how can we make a good educated guess about future? And I think everyone in business wants to do that, particularly when your role is predicting the future, because your future your future relies on your prediction, and to do it correctly. I titled it Product Innovation the Maker Way because I do believe, and I have come from a long history of trying to build things. Even as a teenager, I started building hardware. I don't know how many of you remember Zilog and Z80, those type of stuff. I'm now kind of dating myself. But I started building hardware based on those and learning programming on those, and then I tried kind of C and Unix, and that was it. That even though I was 15 years old, I knew what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And that's what I've been doing. And over time, it kind of occurred to me that the successful products and hence successful companies, they actually, most of them are either founded or done by makers, or somehow along the way, they have infused this maker way of product development. And that's what we do. And if you go from San Jose to San Francisco, I would say in technology in the last 20 years, almost 80% of product innovation came from this little region. And I can say by a good precision that most of those products came from makers. So who are makers? How many of you have heard the term maker? I hope a lot, because this is Silicon Valley. Good. So almost all of you. These are the people who, when they find a pain point, they're not bystanders. They go try to build something, to make something to address that pain. That's basically a maker. But in reality, it becomes you build hardware, software, design, or something in your evenings, weekends, because you have a passion for solving a problem. And I think the secret in product innovation and in successful product innovation is to take that very approach instead of other product development approaches that companies use in more stable industries that won't work in technology. Because technology is very uncertain. And the future, if you're developing soap for PG&E, for Procter & Gamble, P&G, you probably don't have to do this. Soap formula hasn't changed much over the last 100 years. If you work for Coca-Cola, so sure, for branding and marketing, you may want to be innovative and inventive, but for the product itself, not much. But if you're in technology, then you need to do things differently. There's a lot of uncertainty. And I don't know how many of you live in the Bay Area, but this intersection of time and space, like in 2015, in the Bay Area, is probably, we're the luckiest technologists and product developers in the world, in the history of human beings. There is no better place to be if you are an innovator or you want to be an innovator. And things are rapidly changing. Product development and product building and making is becoming democratized, particularly in the hardware area. Software was democratized a while ago. But even hardware now, with $20,000 and a few weekends, not even $2,000 in a few weekends, you can build products that 10 years ago used to take tens of millions of dollars and an army of engineers and product designers. This is amazing. So let's look at it. The premise of my talk is that all these great products are not envisioned overnight. There's this myth that there are these visionary people that I can just give you a long list of people. The guy who's selling this car is one of them. That they just go to bed and come up with this idea, beautiful idea, and then this product is born or that product is born. That's not how it happens. Then how does it happen? Almost with no exception, every product, every great product starts from a pain point. And that pain point generally, in our lab even, some people ask us, we generate a lot of great products very rapidly. Every 6 months, my team generates about 5 to 6 great, beautiful looking, amazing products. But they ask us, how do you come up with these ideas? Do you get your strategy from Korea? Do you hire market research firms? How do you do this? It really is very organic, and it's all from pain points. It's the things that, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And there are lots of whys. Every time you're frustrated about something that you cannot solve with existing solutions and products or apps or whatever, that's the inception of a great product, because you're not alone. So that's how we generate those ideas. And then, obviously, as a business, we look at to see if this is scalable to a large business that Samsung can get involved. And can Samsung build it? Do we have the DNA to do this thing? There are lots of great things to be done out there, but they may not be the right thing for Samsung. These are the 3 most important things that we focus on for every product that we build, no matter what it is, whether it's a platform, software, hardware, or anything. First, we try to, because we're an IoT lab, we try to leverage sensors, context, and user basically data to get rid of interface. In our view, the best interface is no interface. If things happen automatically, if I walk to my car, the door unlocks in a secure way. That's the best experience. If I enter a room, the light goes to the level of intensity that I like. That's the best experience. If I watch a movie and things happen around me and noisy stuff shut down and light dims, if my washing cycle and my washing machine is done and I'm doing something else and I get a quick notification that you can come and put things into the dryer, those are the things that basically I don't have to worry about. So and in our view, that's the promise. That's the really killer app of IoT, for things to happen automatically. We call it indiscernible UI. You don't even see the interface. It exists, but the user is not engaged with it. Then simplicity is a huge tenet for us. We de-scope a lot of things from a variety of different sources when we build a product. They want to add this, they want to add that, add this calendar there, add that note-taking there, but we just de-scope things. And a great product always sticks to its core function. It doesn't matter how many features you've done well and you've implemented well and you put and integrate into a product. If you can't tell the story of the product in a few seconds to your audience and the audience can understand it, it's a DOA. It's not gonna work. So that's why, almost with no exception, all great products that you see, they have a very simple story to tell. It does this. So simplicity is key. And then obviously, IoT is about creating connectivity across devices and then building these beautiful experiences across those. So the way we work is we have a product development team that also supports and tells the market story to a set of technologists. These are engineers that day in, day out, they start building technologies, but not for the sake of technology, for the market. And then when they build it, they feed it back, and these products are born. So once we get that why, a good why, that we want to work and build a product on, we go to the wall. We start talking and brainstorming. Then we do some initial course design. Then we refine the design. We have interaction designers. We have very creative people who start working. What does this product do? And then we start making stuff. Most of our products, not all of them, but most of them have hardware, software, and cloud service all mingled together. So we have to build things. And I tell you here why, that the claims that I made in the beginning, that the magical stuff, magical product, is actually in the maker approach, in the making things. Then we write code. Software usually is everywhere. Then we test it to see whether we thought this thing would do this and people would like it this way or that way. Did it actually occur? Is it the case? Sometimes it is, a lot of times it's not. So we have to correct it. And then we go back and we make more stuff. And then we write more code. And then we test it again. So you get the idea, right? It's a cycle. So we make, we evaluate, we learn. We make again, we evaluate, we learn. Each of this takes about 2 to 3 weeks. And it's critical. If it takes 2 to 3 months, you can only do 4 of these per year. We build a complete product in 6 months. There is no time. Market has probably departed. If it was a good idea, it's taken. It's launched by someone else. So this cycle is critical for it to happen fast. And in order for it to happen fast, you need to be able to make really quickly. And that's why you can't go with Procter & Gamble model of product development. You have to prototype very quickly and use open source, big, borrow, steal, anything that is possible to create the experience and test it. Because it's all about the experience. It's not about the underlying technology. And then we finally get it. About 8 to 10 cycles. We go through it. We basically learn a lot of things that we shouldn't have done. We correct them, and we get it right eventually. Or at least we think about it. Then we get some rest. This is actually one of my engineers. I came in one morning, and he was sleeping because the whole night he was working, and I had to ask him to go home just so I didn't want to be liable for stuff. And then, once it's good, we go to Korea. How many of you have been to Korea before? So there is a kind of a city about an hour out of Seoul called Suwon. And if you go to Suwon, it's like Samsung City. There is a large protected area that are lots of buildings, and this is where all R&D happens for Samsung Electronics. For example, this is one of the mobile buildings here. It's called R5. There's R4, and there's kind of it's a real village. It has its hospital and everything. So we go and take it there, and we show it to our Korean counterparts and say, hey, this is great. You got to do this. Sometimes they do it. Sometimes it takes a few more trials to convince them. And then they take it from that concept and prototype, and there is an army of very skilled engineers to basically put this into production, fix the bugs, create the right design for hardware and everything, and then the product comes out. And then we celebrate. Once that happens, it's usually a good thing to ship things. So what is the core? We always mix design and technology, and this order is deliberate. As you saw, we start with design. We don't start with technology. Technology is just to enable the experience and to make sure we can deliver the experience that we promise. As you saw, we do a lot of rapid iterations. If you haven't read this book by Eric Rice, and if you ever want to become a product designer or developer in a large company, small company, startup, anything, I highly recommend it. And then this is, again, this third one goes back to the maker approach. We don't have designers or engineers or strategists. Everybody is a maker. And by that I mean designers in our team generally understand technology. Many of them can code. And our engineers know how to design a little bit. This is not their core skill, but if they have to, they can dive in. And that's the maker attitude, that you do whatever it takes to get it done. So this is a good example. If you ask an engineer to build a thermostat, this is what they probably build. You can't sell it. If they really stretch themselves, this is what's going to look like. But this is what sells in the market. That's why you start with design, not with technology. And this is the iteration thing. You get the idea, you build it, you measure it with some internal users or external users, and then you learn. And the good things you preserve, the mistakes you abandon, or we call it pivot in Silicon Valley. You pivot. And pivot means basically I admit I failed, but I learned from it quickly. So if I want to really summarize the secret of those great products that I mentioned above, is failing. The secret to the success of those products is that there were a lot of failures before they got it right. But you fail, and you fail very quick and often until you get it right. One other book, this is, I think, a Bible, The 4 Steps to the Epiphany by Steve Blank. I highly recommend that you read it more than once. If you can't, you don't have time, or you're lazy like sometimes like myself, this is a cheat sheet version of it. It's a shorter version, but it gives you the gist. And then cross-functional trainings. If you come from creative background, learn to code, understand the hardware. If you are coming from technical background, you're an engineer, learn to design. Take a course, take a drawing course, learn Adobe Illustrator, because the future belongs to those type of ambidextrous people, that they have this duality skill. The days are gone for single disciplinary people. Another great book that I highly recommend is basically, if you see a great product, you just think of one. And you see a lot of other Me Too's in the market that they didn't make it, that they're in the same space. The delta between the great product and its competitors that didn't make it is best I've seen is described in this little book, small book. So it's a great book to read. That's it. So basically, fail and fail often, and you'll get it. Thank you.
At this point, we will transition to a moderated discussion with Moe and I before opening up to the audience in 10 minutes. And if you need a seat, this is a good time to grab one.
The person she was talking to.
Thank you, Mo, for sharing all of that. While you were talking about it, the first thing that was on my mind was, how did you come up with this mindset of iterating and testing so fast?
We learned it actually. I did a startup a few years ago, and it miserably failed. And I tried to figure out why. We knew why we failed once we failed, because basically after everything is clear, you know what happened. But I tried to figure out how you can basically figure out what's going to fail you before you fail. And I read a lot, I learned, I talked to a lot of gurus and mentors, and I figured out people actually have perfected this in Silicon Valley, and that's why I moved to Silicon Valley. I used to live in Ottawa, Canada. And that kind of was the epiphany for me. That yeah, in order not to fail, you have to fail a lot more frequently on smaller scales.
It's really cool. So another question to follow up from your slides is, you talked about being ambidextrous with technology and design. How did you, coming from engineering background, learn design?
In early 2000s, I think many of us remember products like iPod, and things started to shape up that design is the critical differentiator. Like if you go back to early 90s, no one cared about design. Every product sucked from design perspective. It was the user that had to adapt to the product. Then things changed, and I think that was, for many of us, was the time to realize that the differentiator is no longer the technology, is the actual overall experience. And part of that experience is underlying technology, but it's exposed through a very simple and beautiful design.
That is very insightful. Now I would like to ask more about your experience and career.
Sure.
You talked about your startup. Now, I know a lot of us in Silicon Valley are thinking about doing a startup or starting our own. What was your most aha moment about doing that yourself?
I gave it away, but it was basically how not, I had to minimize basically the probability of your eventual failure and demise. But one of the other things that was kind of unexpected for me, and I learned it along the way, was how it is very easy to start a startup, how it is so incredibly difficult and challenging to actually find and build a product that people are willing to pay for. And then I realized that startup is not a product development business. It's a search and discovery business. So this is a different mindset. Most of us have ideas, and ideas are worth nothing, by the way. That, cool, let's do this, or let's do that. And that you kind of inherently and subconsciously think that that defines your business and your startup, but that's not the right mindset. That's the wrong, that's what basically gets 19 out of 20 startups fail. The right mindset is, I'm looking for the right thing. I have a general idea, but I don't know what it is. And I'm willing to accept. So then with this mindset, you don't get married to your idea. And if you read these books by Steve Blank or Eric Rice or those type of basically search and discovery journeys, you realize, you see some people start from point A in this answer space and completely depart from where they were thinking was the right thing to do, and they give up on it and they do a completely different thing because that's what the market wants. So the challenging part, to answer your question, was to find the right product market fit. That was incredibly hard, and I learned by a lot of bruises and mistakes that the only way to get it right is by iteration.
Speaking of bruises and mistakes, how was it like starting out as an engineer and then moving up to starting your own company, as well as now leading a whole organization?
Well, engineers generally want to do things. So that comes naturally to anybody who chooses engineering as a career is because probably you want to build things and to make things. So that came naturally. But going from that to wanting to start up my own business, again, there are multidimensional aspirations involved. But the key one is that you feel there is a pain somewhere and you want to address it and fix it. And then once you do that and you fail, you start trying to figure out what did I do wrong? Well, how can I learn? And then my path took me to where I am right now to actually try to practice and learn that skill within a larger organization.
Could you speak a bit about what's different between working at a startup and a big company? I know I'm trying to figure out which one fits better for me and maybe others in the audience too.
Sure. So there are some obvious differences. The way I describe my team is we are basically 5 or at times 6 startups within an organization. That's how we operate. But the difference working for a company like Samsung or a larger company is that you're funded, at least most of the time. So you don't have to go after raising money. That's a major advantage. That's one thing. The second thing, you have a very strong channel to, once you build your product, to ship it and to put it in Best Buy and this place and that place and sell it. For a startup, the brand is not there. Those are the obvious ones.
So in order to make sure we have time for our audience, I will just ask my last question, which is also a GSV favorite, which is what matters most to you and why?
This is a multidimensional question. So I'll answer it from professional perspective. Obviously, we have all different dimensions in our lives. But from professional perspective, I grew up watching a lot of, maybe too much Star Trek. And I know all the original series episodes, and I know what happened, and it just, I watched them too many times. But it fundamentally changed me. The reason I chose to become, first of all, an engineer, and then I kind of almost exclusively worked in wireless. The first part of my career and mobility products was the communicator. I was so impressed and fascinated with being able to communicate at any place, at any point you are. When I did my graduate studies in engineering, I chose speech recognition as my research area because that conversation that happened between the enterprise crew and the computer was also fascinating. And I still, my probably biggest dream is to build a smart space that can communicate and interact with. So professionally, I think something that has influenced me and kind of directed my choices in career has been startup. And trying to at least build as much of it as possible.
That's awesome. I'm sure there's a lot of Star Trek fans in the audience as well. So at this point, I'd like to turn this over to the audience. The first one to raise your hand.
Hi. As a note to what you mentioned, like any non-obvious factors in trying to build a startup, when you said you have to sell it internally if you're part of a company, I'm on the building startup side, and I'll tell you, if you're interested in that, you have to sell it to your parents and sell it to your wife or husband if you're married. For instance, I constantly have to calm my parents down and say, don't worry, I'm not going to be homeless tomorrow. So that aside, my question to you is, I'm building...
But there's a 5% chance that you're right. 95% chance. Statistically speaking.
Where my account now, I'm happy if my account is above 0.
Yeah.
Even if it's 10 cents, I'm happy it's not negative. So, but my question to you is, I'm building a medical imaging cloud platform. And I know that you mentioned that going through a lot of iterations is really important. Do you have any advice regarding how to speed up that iterative process if you're in the medical device industry?
Who's your user? Who's going to pay for it?
Hospitals, researchers.
Go to them. Stay blanket and get out of the building. And I think the sooner you get out of the building, the better.
Yeah.
Even tomorrow. If you haven't spoken to them yet, then that there's something seriously wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking to Oxford, and then a few universities in France, and MIT, and National University in Australia already sending all their data to us, because we're the only ones that are able to take an MRI scan. When you look at it, it looks really crappy and grainy, really difficult to understand. Instantaneously transform it so you can see 100% visual depiction of the heart structure. So that's something we want to scale and mass versus having people just send us their data for that to take a long time, blah, blah, blah. So I was just wondering.
Great. So that's exactly what you need to do. To
Okay.
get out of the building and talk
So
to
there's
the
no
people.
shortcut.
There's no shortcut.
Essentially.
In the back.
Thank you.
Yes.
We are extremely blessed, as you mentioned, to be in Silicon Valley. I couldn't agree with you more. My question is for the more traditional businesses, so not high-tech, and ones that are not even in this area, much less this country, where there's not a culture of innovation. The idea of failing is anathema to many business leaders. What, in your experience, are some ways to crack that?
Move here.
Yeah, well, the answer.
I did that.
Yeah, I think so did I.
Yeah.
But for.
They don't get it. Failure is a taboo everywhere else. Here is a and the reason is this.
Do you have any suggestions for evangelizing these concepts that were pretty
Yeah,
good
have them
here?
read those two books. The book by Eric Rice and the book, or at least watch an hour video. Eric Rice has a great video on YouTube, so does Steve Peng. They'll get it eventually. If they're smart, they get it.
That guy has his hands up for a really long time.
We talk about simplicity. However, user needs and user intention change all the time. How can a simple and straightforward design trying to solve that problem can keep up with user change as compared to a more complex solution that can solve more stuff in the future?
Your design can evolve, but and can still stay simple. The whole idea is, so if your product requires a user manual, then you're doing something wrong. In this day and age, nobody reads user manuals. Even people in the 20 years ago, they didn't have patience. But if you have to describe how your product works, then their design is wrong, or there are too many things in the product that you're doing. The key here is, and we've seen it over and over and over again, that a successful product is a product that people can get in 30 seconds, and they can still operate it.
Yeah, but I'm afraid that's not future-proof enough. I was thinking there must be a middle point where people require to learn something, but that enable to do so much more things than just about
Well, I'm more talking about consumer products. Obviously, if you're building a fighter jet or helicopter or a space shuttle, you can learn how to operate it in 30 seconds. Better not. But for consumer products, our attention span is so short these days that it has to just do one or two things.
Okay.
That's it. And the best way to guarantee that is right here.
Thank you.
Back left.
So you mentioned rapid iterations are critical to actually have a good product. How do you go about assessing whether or not a product has actually succeeded? What is the ideal method to determine whether or not you have iterated correctly?
So, great question, by the way. You have different levels of testing of your hypothesis. One is, there's a lot of epiphany that you actually, when you think something is going to work on paper, when you build it, you feel it, and you say, not really. This is not what I had in mind. But if you build it and you still think this is exactly what I had in mind, go and have your target audience user use it. It may not look like finished final product. It may look ugly, but you get very, very valuable feedback. So that's how you know.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I have two-part question. One is, you always build in your innovation lab devices or products that are independent of some Samsung's already existing product line?
not always.
No. So if you do build stuff that's part of Samsung's product line, do you involve the bigger engineering team?
We do.
Samsung?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they
How
generally.
early do you involve them?
It depends on the product. If we have to, for example, integrate something with our TV line, then we reach out to our visual display GBM or line of business in Korea and say, hey, we need this particular SDK. Give us the documentation for these APIs, that type of
Yeah,
stuff.
but that's only one way. Do you like take input from them while creating the design?
At a high level, not, because first of all, Korea is far.
Yeah.
It's not, it takes 16 hours sometimes to 12, 16 hours to get there. And second, I think autonomy of product development is key and important. And it's hard to tell the full story of the experience before you actually perfected it. So if you take something that is 20% done at the first, like end of second iteration, and you tell them, what do you think about it? You're wasting your time. But if you have a vision, you continue perfecting it, and until you reach that point that you feel, okay, I hit all of my objectives, now I take it there.
Okay, but from the perspective, thanks for that, but from the perspective of them having to build your product as a product versus a product prototype, does it help for you to engage them?
It helps to engage them early, in a sense to just make sure it works with existing products, if it's part of an ecosystem. But no, if you're building an independent product, we find that it's just build it and then take it there.
So 2 more questions. Green.
I love what you say about the makers and the maker mindset. I transitioned from a marketing and business career to a product design career, and I was wondering, because what you said, like most of the people transition from an engineering career to a product design. What is the technologies that you recommend me to learn or to focus for the
I don't know, what type of product do you have passion for?
Currently I'm working in software, but I would like to move more into like hardware and
Physical
software
thing?
products.
Then start playing with Arduino or Raspberry Pi, those type of stuff. It's easy to do those type of stuff.
Last question, please.
Okay. I've been in technology for many years, more on distribution side, but sometimes I feel when I found traveling, you found a very nice technology or something, and you said, oh, this is great, and then you bring and you try to distribute, but I crash with the timing many times. If you are Samsung, if you are a global industry and you have the power to launch a new product and make the people know that exists, pretty easy.
Yeah, that's what I said. If
When
you
you
work
are
for-
a small company or regional company or just one country company, it's pretty complicated. Let the people know that some new technology or new improvements can help in their lives. How do you handle with the timing? I think the timing is a key point in the innovation.
Again, if you do the iterations for developing the product, if you're bringing someone else's product, again, the same principles can apply. Bring it, have the people who want you want them to use it and pay for it. Try it, and if they say, yeah, great, this is where can I buy it, then you go and get more. If they say, well, I don't know really, this a lot of products, for example, that are successful in Asia, they're not successful in North America and vice versa. It's very cultural. You need to make sure that the product market fit exists. I agree with you, it's difficult to reach to your audience if you don't have a brand, but in the history of human being, if you just get 1 or 2 people who have enough number of followers on Twitter who like your product and write 100 characters about it, you can probably beat $20 million marketing budget of someone else's by just doing that. So it's not that difficult that it used to be. So you need to get out there.
So I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. A few announcements before we end. Thank you again for coming to Cool Product Expo. We would love to have your feedback. So on those brochures you got, there is a QR code. We're going with this Cool Product thing where you take your cool product out of your pocket and scan it, then send us feedback. And please join us next year as well. We would love to have you come back. As well, thank you, Mo, for coming and sharing your thoughts on this.
Sure. My pleasure.